Hello, everyone. Dr. Christine Smith here. I have a really cool guest for you today. This is Dan Bowdey. And Dan was the first true business coach that I really got to have. And he helped me through some really massive business decisions. And we just kind of got close during that time because we were going through so much together and he helped me so much. And he just is a brilliant mind when it comes to business with decades of wisdom. So I thought this would be helpful to have a conversation about because not only does he kind of do business coaching, he also does some life coaching and really kind of taught me that they're not separate and how to start designing my life around what I really wanted. And I know I have a lot of professionals on this channel, and I also have just a lot of people who are working in their own employment positions or with their own businesses. So I thought it could just be helpful for everyone. So hi, Dan. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this with me. I'm so glad that you're here. And I would love if you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your work history and how you got passionate about what you're doing now.
Oh, perfect, Dr. Christine. I appreciate you having me, and it's always good to see you. I, I really wanted to start with what you started with in terms of the life coaching and business coaching. One of the things, and then I'll give my background. One of the things about working with a business owner is understanding that it's not just about the business. And so when you say life coaching, I don't really necessarily think of it that way, but it really is that. I help my clients set goals in not just in their business, but in their financial independence, in their health and wellness, and family and relationships. And I want to know what's going on in those quadrants of their life and making sure that they're focusing on that and not just on the business, because they're not really any good to anyone themselves or their family or their team or their clients if they aren't taking care of the whole picture. So my background is that I have realized that I was a change agent, someone that enjoyed making things better since I was 10 years old and reorganized my mom's kitchen. And my parents gave me the book Cheaper by the Dozen for my 11th birthday, which is about industrial engineers and how they can maybe run their family, maybe a little bit too regimented, which can be a humorous, they made a movie out of it because it is kind of humorous. But, continuous improvement has just been part of my life. My first part of my career was as an industrial engineer for a Fortune 500 company. After they paid for my MBA, I realized I'd rather be involved in small business. So I was able to go to work for and eventually buy a small business. And had a couple partners. When one of them retired, the two of us couldn't agree on the direction to take the business. So I agreed to sell out my half and move on. I was thinking about buying another business, but I was actually approached by the older brother of a business owner that I didn't know. I did know the older brother, to help his brother prepare his business for sale. His older brother had spent 6 years getting his business ready for sale, whereas the younger brother had done nothing. And his older brother, who was my friend, said, "My younger brother doesn't know you. He doesn't know he needs you, but I know you can help him." So the funny part is, in the final interview, I realized that my friend had never told his brother all of that. And he just let it kind of come out in our conversations with him. And so anyway, I helped him triple his business in 3 years and be acquired by a private equity group. I did some consulting work for that private equity group. They own several businesses, and I had asked the head of that group, "What kind of business do you think I ought to go into now that we've sold this one?" He said, No, you need to be a consultant." And after about 5 years of consulting, I realized I had a heart for being more involved with what's really going on in the business, not just the projects of a business. And I was led to become a small business coach, which I didn't even know they existed. I never had a coach when I was a small business owner. And it is a relatively new industry. It's about 20 years old, but it's really only taken hold about the last, 14, 15 years. And I realized I have a real heart for small business owners. They typically don't have a board of directors. They feel like they're they're kind of winging it, not necessarily winging it, but they're doing it all on their own. And so it's just nice to have what I call myself as a non-equity business partner, where I come in and help them through their own thought processes. I don't have all the answers, but I can usually draw out the answers out of my clients. So anyway, that's my background, and I love what I'm doing. And I have evolved a little bit more to businesses in transition of some sort. Like that's how I met Dr. Christine, because she was looking at transitioning
Yeah.
in a certain way that we actually ended up changing the direction of. But
Saved me,
no,
by the way. I was very grateful for the work that we did, which prevented me from making a business decision that would have truly changed my trajectory and would have been a very expensive decision. So the work that we put in actually really helped define where I was going, and I was very grateful for that.
yeah, my mantra is every business owner needs an exit plan, even if they're 20, 30 years away from exiting it. They need to kind of have the things in place that make sense. So when people hear exit planning, they're thinking, oh, well, I'm not 60 yet, I don't need to be thinking about this shit. But no, there are things that if you do ahead of time, actually can make your life a whole lot better. One of the outcomes of working with me is to have a renewed quality of life. And that is that the business owner can get to where the business owns them instead of vice versa. And if we can get to where they have the systems in place and the people in place to support them to where they can enjoy owning a business rather than feeling like it's a bit of an albatross. Even if they were thinking about selling when they approach me, a lot of times they'll say, heck, I can take 2 weeks of vacation, everything keeps running just fine without me. So
Well, and
so
that's like the
that's
definition
my
of,
goal. That's my
yeah, and that's
goal.
the definition of a business, right? Is something that can run without you in it. Otherwise, you're just an employee of your business. And this is
Exactly.
why it can be really helpful to work with a business coach when you're a small business owner. There's an old commercial I like where there's this guy and he's, a food truck owner, and he's sitting at home relaxing in the evening, and the food truck is at the window being like, hey, remember that thing you have to do? And it's like the best definition of what it's like being a small business owner, where you're never actually off of work. And this is why I have been so grateful for learning from Dan, is because not only has he helped me with immense business decisions and putting together a team of the right professionals that I needed to analyze the data to make that decision. There's no way I could have done that on my own. Like, I needed the people for that, and he helped me find the people. But in addition, he asked me the right questions, and we did work together where he helped me define a work-life balance and prioritize certain things. And I think one of the first things that you said to me that has been fundamental, that has stuck with me forever, is don't design your life around your business. Design your business around your life. Like, pick the life that you want and then design your business around that. And that is where business coaches really come in. So I just thank you for that. I'm very grateful.
And that's not necessarily intuitive to do it that way.
No, it's not.
I mean,
it requires breaking through a lot of limiting beliefs.
Yeah, it's so important because you want your business to succeed. You want your employees to enjoy coming to work every day. You want your clients to be faithful and want to keep giving you repeat business. And that can feel daunting.
Yeah. So I know you have also kind of been shifting into like the healthcare and integrative provider realm. And I'd love if you could share a little bit about kind of what got you excited about working with healthcare providers. And I know that's a lot of the people on my channel, a lot of them are in the healthcare profession or seeking for that, but I just know it's been a new interest of yours, and that something that you've been working on, that you're working on courses around it. So I'd love if you could share a little about what got you interested in that.
Well, the fun part is the same thing that got me into being a change agent, which was reorganizing my mom's kitchen, was that my mom had some unusual health challenges when she was a young mom, and even when she was a mom to teenagers. And so she always sought out integrative health solutions to her. And so that was kind of how I was brought up. We didn't necessarily go to normal MDs. So it was sort of ingrained into me, the value of integrative medicine. And I think it just sort of happened organically that all of a sudden now if I look over the 8 years that I've been doing this, almost half of my clients have been in the integrative health fields. It's like about 40% actually. So I think somehow there's just an affinity there. I want to support this type of focus on how to get well and how our bodies can heal themselves if we know how to treat them right, to eat right, to whatever it is. So, the body is such an amazing entity. I don't know what you call it, but it's an organism that is designed to heal itself. And so anyway, whether it's acupuncture or chiropractic or functional medicine, naturopathy, I love all those elements.
Well, and I wanted to make this video to share with you guys because the way that I found Dan was through a colleague of mine. So this is just me passing on the benefits that my colleague passed on to me. And I find this is how you find some of the best people is from word of mouth and referrals. So I think one of my favorite things about you and that I think makes you really unique is how you don't really view business as like business coaching and life coaching as separate, like they're kind of one and the same. So I'd love if you could just talk a little bit about some of the tools that you use in that. And I don't know, like this is a chance to talk a little bit more deeply because that's where I really like to connect with people is the deep stuff that we don't always get to talk about. So it's like, I know that if I am in disarray in my own life, my business tends to feel a little bit of that disarray. And so that is why figuring out how to maneuver them together can be really beneficial.
Well, that's a great question. I talk to prospects about the fact that there's 4 cornerstones to our relationship, and that those are the first 4 things that we work on. It might take 8 to 12 sessions to cover those 4 cornerstones, but unless there's a fire drill that has to be run and we have to put out a fire, I'd like to create those 4 cornerstones, and those are communication, number 1. So we understand our styles and how we like to communicate. It's not only helpful for client and coach, but it's also helpful for the client to then understand, oh, I kind of understand better my staff or my clients and my vendors. So communication, I think, is so important. And so we start with that. Then we do the work-life balance thing I talked about is financial independence, health and fitness, family and relationships, and the business. And we set
Can you repeat that again more slowly for people?
Yes, it's family and relationships, personal health and fitness, financial independence, and business. And I challenge my clients to set measurable goals in all of those and rate themselves. Where are you now? I call it identify your starting point. And, they may rate themselves anywhere from a 4 to a 9. And you don't necessarily have to be all 10s, but the idea is to have at least maybe all 7s. So you're not out of balance. And it's just being cognizant of the fact that balance is critical. Even if it's all 4s, let's have things in balance and then grow them all and improve them all at the same time. And you hear too many stories about basically health and fitness and family relationships can tend to go down the tube if you're focusing too much just on the business. So that's the second cornerstone, is just work-life balance. So communication, work-life balance. The third thing is metrics. How do we measure basically all 4 of those things, but also the business, and creating a dashboard of just a few critical things that you need to have your mind on. I like to talk about results and actions that drive results, and that we measure the actions, the results will follow. So it's called leading and lagging indicators. So we want to know what the leading and the lagging indicators that are your goals, but what are the leading indicators that will actually drive the results? And so that's where I help my clients understand you need to focus on the priorities and actions that you need to actually get ultimately to realize the vision you have for your business and your life. I know part of what Kristen and I talked about is, well, let's design your business. I think she alluded to it. Let's design your business around what your life goals are, not what you think your clients need, but it's more what will give you joy, what will energize you, so the business isn't a drain, but rather an energizing force in your life. So, and then the fourth thing is strategic planning. Being a former industrial engineer, change agent, I learned in my 20s, I had the honor of being on the long range planning committee of, I worked for Eastman Kodak, and I was on their plant long range planning committee, and we did 5-year plans and 20-year plans for the plant. I was the only one that was under 40 years old on this. I was like 25 years old. So I felt really honored to be asked to be on that. But I understand that strategic planning is important. I also understand that you don't want to kid yourself. If everybody knows what's kind of happened to Kodak over the decades, they were a little bit, they were planning, but they were sort of planning with rose-colored glasses. And so I make sure that my clients are really looking at, what are all the other factors that we need to be planning for as time goes along. So we do a strategic plan, and it's not just for the business, but it's also for the career. It was kind of back to what I talked to you about was, yes, you want to take care of clients as part of your business, but what is it that you want to do too? And so we try to design the role, and I get my clients, we have follow-up sessions that get more into detail about how do you actually craft that career that you want that's also in the business. And so that you're not ending up, 5 or 10 years down the road going, I hate this job. Oh, wait a minute, I'm the owner. I've created this job. So if we early on with the strategic plan can create the ideal job, and you're going to delegate the things that you aren't good at or don't want to do, or etc., life's a whole lot better.
I could not agree with you more. And I think one of the things you said that I think is really important out of that is figuring out a way to have your business energize you. And I had an old mentor who was talking about owning a business once, and he said, yeah, sometimes it gets to this point where you feel like you have to go feed the beast. And what we're talking about is figuring out how to ride the beast instead of having to feed the beast. And so having a business coach can just make a really big difference. But I find Dan to be unique because there's a lot of business coaches that are, particular to that field, and they kind of have like a protocol that they work within, versus having one that also works on the work-life balance and is like asking you about like, are you happy? Versus like, let's look at your numbers. Let's get like the highest numbers. Like, it's really important that your coach should be asking you if you're happy and figuring that out and working with some of those deeper concepts. You look like you had something pop on your mind. Go for it.
Oh, a story. Can I give you a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of my clients, I gave a presentation at the Denver Chamber, and this fellow came up to me. I can remember it now because it was a freezing cold February day. This was like, I don't know, 4 years ago. He says, we need to talk. And so we arranged the time to talk, and we had a phone call, and I realized that his wife had been part of him creating his business, and then it sort of stepped aside a little bit and had more of a minor role while they had their 2 kids. And now the kids were a little bit more independent. We're both in grade school, and it was time for his wife to get back into the business. So I sat down with the 2 of them, and the goal was, husband was working 80 hours a week. That wasn't sustainable. It didn't fit the model that I've just been describing. And so they recognized it, and they were encouraged when I said, that's how I help, is I get things back into balance. It took us about 2.5 years. We were thinking it was going to take us 3.5 years, but they realized one of their life goals, which was to move to a mountain town and raise their kids in a mountain town and run their business remotely. And it's just an exciting story. But when we had that initial meeting, they asked, can we wait to start business coaching till we do some marriage counseling? And I said, absolutely, let's do it. And then once they got that, so they were prioritizing family and relationship, right?
Mhm.
And so I was just totally supporting that. And then 6 months later, okay, we're ready to start working on the business. So yeah, I just love that story. It's just makes me smile when I think about that they were actually realizing, and they got to the point because we worked on the financial independence piece, and we did the calculations and figured out you don't need to be working 8 hours a week and driving an insane income anymore, because you've gotten to the point where now you can do a more realistic flow and still have time for the kids.
Well, and the reason I love this is because for anyone who owns your own business, you know that there's a difference between working in your business and working on your business. And it's really, really difficult to get into the right mind state to work on your business on the same days that you're working in your business. You usually need to set like entire separate days aside. So it's like, it's this tricky thing that's hard to explain of like switching between the two minds. And the beauty of having a coach is that there's always someone in the mind state of working on the business, and they can help kind of pull you into that mind and pull you back out of your business until you get to a point where you're only in your business when you want to be, because it's a true business and it's actually running.
Well, and it's particularly poignant because for healthcare providers, you have to have patient-facing time.
Yep.
There's just no way around it. You are the brains and the wisdom and the techniques and tools to help your clients become well. So you can't, you can't be like maybe a carpenter who can just hire a bunch of carpenters and then just become the boss and not really have to swing the hammer. So,
Yes.
And that's part of my heart for integrative health clinics is you still have to be doing some patient facing time.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I couldn't say it better myself. So I want to also touch on some of the stuff that you've been doing more recently, which is you're starting to do some more like online courses for people, but you're also starting to specialize in exit planning. And I'd love if you could like share a little bit about what that is for anyone who doesn't know. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but also like why it's so important. And he has some videos on his Facebook that you guys can check out as well. And he's going to be doing like little videos each week. And I was watching one of them, and you had mentioned like one of the things people don't think about when they're planning their exit strategy is that they might get bored. And I thought that was a great point. So I'd love if you could just like touch on some of this stuff and maybe what you were thinking when you mentioned that.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but that can happen.
Yes.
So the switch really was more getting certified in exit planning. And here's why. I've been helping businesses in transition for 8 years. What I hadn't realized is how important the other advisors are, because I can't do it all.
No.
And
No one can.
so I've been developing what I call my bench of experts in various types of law.
Which is priceless for those who don't really know, like
Right.
having the right referrals, hard to find.
Yeah, I think we had to pull a lawyer in, part of what we did.
We did.
So, so I was developing the bench, but it was just sort of instinctive that I knew I needed to develop the bench. But what I realized I didn't know is I wanted to know better how they help their clients, just like I appreciate you trying to help your audience learn to share how I help. Well, best way to do that was to get certified by the Exit Planning Institute. So I had been part of their organization for about, I don't know, 3 years. And then 2 years ago, I actually became a certified exit planning advisor, studied and went through their course and passed the exam and all that. But it wasn't so much how to help the client, although there was parts of that in there that I already knew, but it was how does an ESOP expert come in if you want to do an employee stock ownership plan, or if you have a family business that gets real complex, sometimes you might need someone that understands um, organizational psychology and how to help with the communication of, especially if it's like a third generation business, there could be like 13 or 15 stakeholders, some in the business, some out. It gets really complex. And so I have people on my bench that do the mathematical model stuff of how that works, and also how the emotional and psychological part of what they're going to sell the family business kind of, questions. So um, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but
No, but that's like the deeper component that we were talking about, right? It's not just a business decision, especially if there's family involved. It's like a whole life decision. It's deeper than just money.
yeah, I think I was just telling a group, I gave a presentation earlier this week. I was explaining that the family often gets left out until the last minute. It can be pretty traumatic. So I basically help improve the value of the business and help it grow over time. But that whole value maturity has various stages. And one of the first stage is just to identify what's the current value. And then I work with my clients, speaking of who is on the bench, I work with their financial planner to help put together what's the net worth they would need if they needed to retire but wanted to sustain a certain lifestyle. What is that net worth figure? And what is their portfolio worth right now? And we kind of look at that gap. We call it the wealth gap. And then we swing over to the business and look at, okay, what's the business worth now? And if we were to grow it and improve its value, can the sale of the business add into whatever's growing in their stock portfolio? If we add those two things together at some time, we can almost even project you wouldn't need to retire at this point, but you could actually retire at X number of years from now if you work on growing the business and growing your portfolio. So that's why I work with financial planners. If they don't have one, I make sure they get a good one. And if they have one, I meet them and we work collaboratively. Estate planning attorneys are another key one. Looking at how we might be structuring, a couple different ways we might be structuring deals. So we're thinking ahead in terms of tax planning, and also charitable giving, or how you're going to gift your family. I know just enough to know that you need to go talk to one of those people. And I didn't do this early, but I learned that sometimes my clients wouldn't go do this. So now I set up the meeting and the three of us meet. And so I make the introduction, I make it comfortable. They're already comfortable with me. And so I kind of make them comfortable with an estate planning attorney, which can be daunting to a lot of people. I just had coffee with somebody yesterday. I said, do you ever have to do interventions to get people to actually sign a will? He says, no, it just has to be the right time for them. You just can't. So, but I like to encourage that. And so those are the two main other people, but there's if you need to understand human resource law, I have people that, if just general business, corporate governance, I have good attorneys for that. And then when we get closer to the exit, there are M&A advisors, or for smaller businesses, business brokers, but also attorneys that are specialized in how to structure deals and protect the owner going through and after the deal.
Yep.
Just had a wonderful conversation with a gentleman this morning that I didn't know, and I really liked. He was introduced to me by a financial planner. He said, you need to know John. And John was explaining to me all the ways that he really protects his owners through that. I was taught in my SEPA course, but I had never actually met anybody that was so passionate about making sure those things are in place. So he's moved up on my list of people that I would refer.
I love it. And for anybody listening, like if you were listening to what he was just saying, and you're like, I don't know what that type of person does. I actually don't know what that word means either. If there is any of that going on for you, this is why it's important to work with somebody, is because you start to realize how much you don't know. And if your entire time is put into building and fostering a business, which is like raising a child in its own way, your energy is there, your expertise is there. And this is why you hire other people who are experts in their field to help you in the areas where you have less knowledge. And this is why I wanted to bring him on, and why I'm passionate about this is because I feel like a lot of people and entrepreneurs and other small business owners that I know either haven't worked with a business coach, or haven't really thought about it, or don't really know what it entails. And so I just, this is a lot of what my channel is about, is just exposing people to things that can help you. And, even though this is a channel that I mostly dedicate towards health education, we can consider this like a mental health episode. If you are a business owner and then you know how much energy goes into it, and having someone who has your back, or is helping you stay organized, or is helping you think ahead while you're doing that thing of working in your business is invaluable. And the amount that it affects your health later, to have all this stuff planned out so that you're not dealing with gigantic hiccups around taxes like later in life while you're trying to sell a business, like that becomes really, really stressful. So in a way, I consider this still health oriented because, I'm a chiropractor for people and I help align their bodies. Dan is an honorary chiropractor of my business, and he helps align my business and make sure everything is flowing well and that its life force is expanded and happy. So I don't know, I was thinking of that as you were talking. I was like, yeah, you really do align my business. So anyway, just with everything that we've been talking about, again, thank you so much for doing this with me. Is there anything else that you would just want people to know that you think is just so important, or that's just kind of in your heart?
Well, I think I started to allude to the value maturity ladder, and I didn't really finish that thought. So
Oh yeah, please.
we identify the value, figure out the net worth piece. So that's all we talked about. Then we protect the value. So that's when you need the estate planning attorney and various other instruments in place, maybe some insurance, to where you're protecting the value for the what ifs, the issues that might come up, whether it's disease or worst case death. So all those things are protected. And then we can work on building the value. But it's all with the future thought of, at some point, you're going to harvest the value of this business. And so you want a good financial planner that's walking with you through the whole way for the harvest stage. And then also and there's a lot of people involved in the harvest stage. The last one is your financial planner, which is going to help you manage your money in retirement. So next to the last stage of the harvest that's where we bring in, I mentioned the attorneys that can help you with the transaction deal, and the M&A experts and all that. Finding a buyer sometimes is an issue. A lot of my clients were either selling to a key person or a family, but it's the same principle still to take, because you also want to have a contingency plan. What if something happens to the next generation? Either they decide they don't want to buy it, or they have a health event. So it's just being aware of, and if you would want to, as she alluded to, just check out my Facebook postings. I've been posting little tips every week on a Wednesday afternoon on Facebook Live to kind of lead up to the fact that I'm going to be giving an online course this spring.
I was just going to ask about that. Will you tell us a little bit about what's going to be in it?
So it's really all the building blocks of having a transition plan in place, and who the players are. I've been mentioning them on this call.
Yep.
But so how does this puzzle all fit together? So the course will sort of build on first understanding and then some implementation. So some of it you can do yourself. But the fact is 80%, between 70 and 80% of small businesses come to the end thinking they can sell and can never sell. And it's because they weren't guided to prepare the business to be sellable, or what we call transferable.
Yes, packaging. It's all about the packaging.
Yes. And so part of the course will be explaining, how do you create a business that's transferable? There's a lot of the elements of, okay, helping you think like a buyer, and how will they look at your business, and how can we make it I don't know if pristine is the right word, but I like to use the analogy that I'm the little Dutch boy that finds the holes in the dike and plugs them to make sure that the village is saved. In this case, there could be several holes in the dike in a business that a buyer would come and go, oh, well, I'm not paying this because of the holes in the dike. And so what my job is to identify those and then help come alongside the owner, because a lot of times they wouldn't know how to fix those holes. So we can plug those up, whether they're legal or a customer or structural things that the business isn't well defined. And I like to have all my clients eventually get their business to be a turnkey business where all their systems are documented, and a new owner can come in and say, oh, wow, this is all laid out. And even if a key employee leaves, their job is so well defined, you could hire somebody and train them quickly into that job. So
Yep.
yeah, it's a process, but I don't know where I came up with that analogy. I've never heard anybody else use it, so I own it. That we need to plug the holes in the dike, and then when the buyer comes, they can't find any leaks, and
Yep.
so they'll pay premium. And that's important because a lot of times people come to the end thinking there's a pot of gold there and there's a little sack of coins. And if we prepare the business correctly, there will be a pot of gold.
Yep. Well, I love getting to chat with you because you just do such a good job of reminding people of the vast capacity that like your life and your business have, and the roles that different things play, and all the things that you might not be thinking of. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this because Dan's one of my favorite people. So if they do want to work with you or check out your course or learn more, where should they go?
Well, my thought is that it's just to go to my website. I haven't done it yet, but I will be putting a landing page on there to start a wait list for my course this spring. So my website is my name, Dan Bowdey, DANBOWDEY .focal point coaching, all one word, FOCALPOINT coaching. .com, and just go to the website and kind of check out what I do, and it may be a week or two, but I'll have a landing page there pretty soon for my course.
Perfect. And if you guys want to check out his little videos on Facebook as well, those will be going up weekly. And I always think if you ever want to get a feel for kind of how somebody works, watching those videos can be helpful. And then you kind of know if what's coming and like what you're excited about. And the cool thing about the waitlist aspect is then you guys can go and comment on like what you want to learn and things like that. And that's how we end up catering to people, and why I love doing videos on social media or live is because it's ultimately all about you guys. Like that's why we're here. So
and that's basically what coaching is not presuming that I know the answers to the questions and that they aren't the right questions. So you would be doing me a favor by going, when I get that posted, just answering the questions of what do you need to hear about, what does a transition plan involve, and
yep.
that
And then we
can
can
help me fine tune my course.
Yep. And then we can cater it to you guys. So anyway, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. As always, it's wonderful to see you, and I'll look forward to the next time we get to do this.
Always love hanging out with you.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care.